to this session. Yeah, actually, you can just let me know when we can start and kick off.
Okay, I think we are ready to start.
Okay, cool. Before I start, let me just quickly pray and open for us. And yeah, let's kick off. Our Father, we come to you this morning and we honor you and we praise you, and we come with humble heart into your presence, and we just wanna glorify you. Everything that we do, we want it for you to smile over us. And finances is such a big topic in our lives, and it can so quickly consume us in terms of what we think, what we do, the decisions that we make, how far we are from your heart. Is largely the extent that it relates to our finances. And we want to come to you this morning, and I pray that everything that I say will be a message that comes from your throne, that the message that you provide us with will be a message that lands and resonates with every single person. I come and pray that you will avoid any confusion, and that it will be a clear message, and that every person listening to this will be blessed in abundance. We honor you, we fear you, and we serve you, and we really love you, our Abba Father. Amen. Okay, so I'm quickly going to share my screen. So to the crowd, I like to think in pictures. Let me just quickly see where I can share. So I like to think in pictures. So let me put this in preso mode, and then I'll share. If you can just give me a heads up in terms of whether you can see it.
Yes.
On your side. Okay, great. Yeah, so I like to think in pictures, so I'm just kind of follow everything. So it's a bit creative, but yeah, let's. I hope it also is. When preparing these PowerPoints, I think I sometimes like more the pictures than actually the words inside it. So I hope you also enjoy it. So yeah, the topic for today is the Father's heart for our finances. And this is from a kingdom perspective. Now, my wife, she knows me. This is something that really excites me. The last couple of months, we did this redemptive gifts. And so my redemptive gift is on the rulership, and finances really talks to that. So it's something that's very close to my heart, talking about finances and finances from a biblical perspective. Since I was very, very young, it's always something that I was curious about, interested in, and I think there's such a bad connotation towards growth and finances and the way we see money. I think our perspective in terms of that has been skewed for many reasons. So this was one of the topics that I researched quite thoroughly to understand what is Abba Father's heart for our finances, and is it a bad thing or is it a good thing? How can we use it to glorify Him? I really love working, and I think that talks to my redemptive gift as a ruler. I love to work and to grow, and I can't wait on a Monday morning to actually start working. So for me, that's quite a big thing. So if the connotation is sometimes bad towards it, it makes my heart very sore, because we want to grow. So the purpose of today's, and the question is when we look at finances, where do we start? It's such a massive topic in the word. There's more than 2,000 scriptures that relates to management and finances, more than 2,000. So the question is, where do we start? Do we start by looking at different characters? Do we look at King Solomon, who was one of the richest men who ever walked the earth? Should we look at Abraham, that was a very rich man, and he was known for doing quite extraordinary things? Should we look at Jacob, that was also quite a good farmer, and the way he stewarded his finances? Should we look at Nehemiah? So there's so many characters in the Bible that provides us with different outlooks in terms of how to be successful on the marketplace. But however, the purpose of this, so we're also a bit limited in terms of time, and it's quite a topic that's been researched for many, many, many years, and there's so much hidden truth and wisdom inside it, and it's difficult to cram everything into one specific time period, but then also not to overload you as the listener in one sitting, so you can't give too much info. So the angle that I've approached this today is to look at it from a kingdom perspective. And the purpose of this teaching is solely for us to develop a new perspective towards how we see our finances, how we approach it, and how we work towards that. So my idea and purpose is to change that perspective, and that every decision that you will make going forward would be from a kingdom perspective. This relates perhaps probably to your identity, how you see yourself. And if that's from a kingdom perspective, the decisions that you make will also be in line with that. So the best place to start from here, let's just get a laser or something. So the best thing to start with is to look in Matthew 6. Now, we all know this highly known verse or chapter in the Bible where it speaks to we should not worry about what we have. The Lord provides with us. The Lord provides for us. So in Matthew 6 verse 33, it's very well known. But first, seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. That's in verse 33. And in verse 10 is also, may your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven. And for so many years, I did not understand, what does it mean to seek His kingdom and His righteousness? It sounds very easy, and it probably is, but what does it exactly mean? And even as a grown adult, it's sometimes difficult. It took me a very, very long time to actually understand this passage. Our starting point is to look exactly at the kingdom, to start there. Now, the question, however, is, what is a kingdom? So if we have to determine what is His kingdom, let's just first try to define a kingdom. And for me, a kingdom has certain characteristics. A kingdom obviously has a king. If there's no citizens, there's no need for a king. So a king always has citizens in his land. That specific land has a calendar. That land has a legal system or specific laws that regulates the daily living of the citizens and the king inside it. A kingdom also has a financial system and specific currency. A kingdom has specific feasts and also has a specific culture. We can add even food to this, wisdom to this. This is requirements for a kingdom to be established. So if we look at this is quite easy, and I mean, you would probably ask, what does this actually relate to our finances? But Adam was kind of a big deal, because he gave our keys to the kingdom to the enemy. He gave it to Satan. And at that point, right in Genesis, when sin came in, he gave our kingdom away, our keys to the kingdom to Satan, and that established two sets of kingdoms that is still applicable today. And so firstly, there needs to be a distinction between these spiritual kingdoms. So once Adam and we were kicked out of Eden, then there were two kingdoms, the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light, and they're still here today, and they are in the spiritual realm. But whatever governs these kingdoms will manifest in the natural here on earth. And that's where it becomes difficult, because the question that I want to ask you as the listener is, which kingdom are you serving? And you would probably say, this is a very, very easy question. I'm serving the kingdom of light. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been on this channel or listening to this teaching. You'd probably you probably feel that you're in the kingdom of light. But that's not really the case, because if we break it down a little bit and we try to understand exactly if these are the requirements for a kingdom to be there, then we must just quickly have a look at how does the kingdom of darkness look like, and how does the kingdom of light. So in terms of a king, the kingdom of darkness also has a king there. That's Satan. On the kingdom of light is Yeshua as the king. In terms of citizens, in the kingdom of darkness, there's servants or there's slaves, whereas in the kingdom of light, they're sons or heirs. From a land perspective, you're either in Egypt or Babylon or in the promised land. A calendar, there's a pagan calendar and there's also a Hebrew calendar. From a legal perspective, we've got this Western legal system that's developed from specific English law, specifically that developed from our Roman emperors, that gave these Roman law, Dutch law, and English law that it's probably regulated most of all of the countries in the world. So you get a legal system, but the kingdom of light is only one legal system, and that's from a biblical point of view. The financial system, if you look in the kingdom of darkness, specific financial instruments such like tax, debt, is applicable in the kingdom of darkness. Whereas in the kingdom of light, I'm only using a couple of examples to keep it as short as possible. We sit with the opposite with tithing and office. Feasts, you in a position where the kingdom of darkness has the pagan feasts, but the Bible gives us 7 biblical feasts. Culture, is it a worldly culture or is it a biblical culture? Food, we all know that one. Is it worldly food or is it biblical food that's allowed as per our instruction manual, the Bible? But so that's clear if it's on the opposite sides of each other. But however, in life, we sit where we seeing that our kingdoms are starting. So the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness that's in the spiritual realm manifests in the natural here on earth. So this is the unseen manifests in the seen world, and now it's starting to get mixed. And then you ask me, Jacus, but why do you say we mix? Because Satan is not my king, Yeshua is our king. That's true. And some things is clear cut. But from a feast point of view, some people, and for many years myself, we celebrated Easter, but we never we celebrated Easter, and we did not understand that we're actually supposed to celebrate Pesach. We forgot totally about the last 4 feasts and only focused on one specific feast. We still celebrated New Year's Eve, so we celebrate the calendar of the pagans. That's the Gregorian calendar. We still use financial instruments such as debt to finance our lifestyle needs, our necessity to feel that we've got ownership of certain things. We are still in many ways stuck in Egypt, but we want to be in the promised land. And that's why it's difficult for us, because our kingdoms are starting to intertwine between each other. It's a rope that starts to build between all of these. So you've got a credit card, but you also want to pay your tithings. Or, for example, the other day I spoke to a person who said, I couldn't pay my tithe this month because I had to pay SARS VAT. So there's a clear distinction that you made a choice not to pay the kingdom of light, but you pay the kingdom of darkness. Now, in that sense, please don't get me wrong. I don't say you shouldn't pay tax. It's just a decision that was made between tax and tithing, and that's the opposites of each other of these kingdoms. And there was this guy in the word, and sometimes I resonate with him. So in Matthew 19, we read about this young man. So a young man approached Yeshua and he said, and you're welcome to read this. I just took snapshots out of the word. So a young man approached Yeshua and he said, Rabbi, what good thing should I do in order to have eternal life? He said to him, why are you asking? So Yeshua then answers him, why are you asking me about good? There's one who is good. But if you want to obtain eternal life, observe the mitzvahs. Now, this is the instructions for those of the listeners. It's the law that was given to Moses. This is what's referred to. So Yeshua said to him, you must, if you want to do good and you want to have eternal life, you must follow these instructions that we've given you. So then the man asked him, which ones? And then Yeshua said, don't murder, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't give false testimony, honor your father and your mother, and love your neighbor as yourself. This is a summary of everything that sits in the Torah. Now the young man said to him, I've kept all of these. Where do I still fall short? So I sometimes laugh when I read this thing, because perhaps you must start with humility, because he said, I've kept all of these. Which one do I still fall short? I think humility. But in any case, Yeshua said to him, if you are serious about reaching the goal, go and sell your possessions, give to the poor, and you will have riches in heaven. Then come follow me. Now, this is a very sad part for me, is because the next part says that when the young man heard this, he went away sad because he was wealthy. So I want to put myself in Yeshua's feet, or in his shoes. And the answer that Yeshua gave to his disciples was very interesting. And he said to them, I tell you that even that it will be very hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Furthermore, I tell you that it is easier for a camel to pass through a needle's eye than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. And for a very long time, I did not understand this scripture at all. Because it feels like it's impossible. Now, for me, as a person, I like to grow, and I would like to be characterized as a rich person. It's something that you work towards. You want to grow your wealth. So in this passage, it feels as if it's almost impossible for you. You should not strive towards creating wealth. You should rather avoid it. But this comes in. The funny thing is, it's actually a translation from a camel. So firstly, that doesn't really make sense to me. But if you read the word so Yeshua did not speak in Greek at that point. He probably speak in Aramaic or in Hebrew to his disciples. Now, the word for camel in Aramaic is the word gamal. Now, gamal has two specific meanings. It means either camel or rope. Now, in the context of this passage, it makes much better sense that it was used in terms of a rope and not a camel. Now, just think about it. And I've got a picture here of it. If you take a thick rope, a rope consists of different wires, and it intertwines between each other, and it forms a thick, strong, unbreakable thing that you want to use to strengthen specific things. So that's the purpose of a rope. Now, if you think about a needle, and probably the ladies will understand this a bit better if you do a lot of this stuff with sewing, but it's impossible for a rope to get through a needle. So this relates more to the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness than anything else. Because the thing is, it looks like this. Now you're starting to intertwine a rope, or you start putting all of these smaller wires or these smaller strings together, and that forms a thick rope. It looks like this, where the kingdom of light and the kingdom of the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light starts to overflow with each other. So the only way that you can get a rope through a needle is if you were to untangle this whole rope into smaller strings to get it through it. You need to have a look like this, where you are totally set apart from the kingdom of darkness and into the kingdom of light. That's how you get a rope through a needle. And the funny thing is, if a rope is such a strong thing, and we see this also in scripture, where the only way at one point where a rope can be untangled if it gets cut. That's the only way you can start untangling a rope again. And sometimes in our lives, we have to take that view where we say we need to cut off a specific part of our lives and start fresh to untangle where we are at this point in history to go forward, to go through that needle. So that's quite a practical view on to do that. Now, while I was doing some of my research, the Lord clearly showed to me this picture. So we know that everything that happens in the spiritual realm will also manifest in the natural realm. And he gives us clear instructions how to do that. He even tells us a lot of these stories. Now, one of the most profound stories is when you look in the Torah. It already started here, where we see that the people or the children of Abba Father, they were in the kingdom of darkness. They were stuck in the kingdom of darkness for 400 years. And they wanted to move out of the kingdom of darkness, and they wanted to get into the kingdom of light, the promised land, from Egypt to the promised land. And this is a period of 40 years. So it's a very, very short trip from Egypt to Israel. But it took them 40 years. Now, the thing is, it took them 40 years to untangle these ropes that they formed in 400 years in their period in Egypt. And only at that point in Deuteronomy, where they were starting to enter the promised land, they were untangled. And the most beautiful thing is, and I get goosebumps every time I think about it, during that period, Abba Father gave them his word as the way to untangle this rope. It just took them 40 years for that to sink in, for them to understand how to get clean from Egypt into the promised land, how they can move out of the kingdom of darkness and into the kingdom of light. Now, our finances plays a very integral part in terms of kingdom of darkness and kingdom of light, because the way you allocate your funds is you're either serving the kingdom of darkness or the kingdom of light. If you serve yourself, you are serving the kingdom of darkness. If you only focus on yourself, you are not financing the kingdom of light, but rather financing the kingdom of darkness. And that's why in Joshua 1, one of my favorite scriptures is in Joshua 1, where the Lord instructs Joshua to say, you are now the next generation. Moses has died. So take this word and you'll be successful. The Afrikaans word is one of my most favorite words. My wife, she knows it. I say it every single day. The Afrikaans word is welglik salig. It means you'll be prosperous in everything that you undertake. Welglik salig is one of my most favorite words. Is if you use this manual, you'll be able to know exactly how to get out of Egypt into the promised land. But also, once you are in the promised land, how can you be a tool, an instrument, a shofar to be of use for your king, who is Yeshua. So the purpose of this first part was just to lay a foundation, to have a mindset, so that once we go forward from here on, to say, well, we understand that you are either serving the kingdom of darkness or serving the kingdom of light, and how you use your instruments that was given to you, that is how prosperous you will be in the promised land. So my goal is for first, just to us to say that we need to get ordained. And once you're there, how can we actually be of good use for your king? Okay. If anyone has questions, feel free to interrupt me at any point in time, or if the signal drops, let me know. If I need to go back or anything, you're welcome to let me know. Okay, so for us to understand going forward, so there's a lot of kingdom principles, but for the purposes of this teaching now, I only want to focus on 3 specific principles. So what kingdom principles, what we can first have to develop in our minds to understand how to be effective in the kingdom of light. Now, 3 very important kingdom principles for me to understand is ownership, rulership, and stewardship. And this forms a very integral part in terms of how you see yourself, where you fit in. And once you understand that, this will lay the foundation for you to be a instrument in the kingdom. All right. So if we look at ownership, that's the first part. And why it's got these arrows between the two is this: it's the link. But ownership, rulership is the link between the relationship between ownership and stewardship, but I'll explain it now. So ownership and rulership. I want to start in Genesis 2, verse 5 to 9, where it says that there was, at that point in time, no wild bush on the earth, and no wild plant has yet sprung up. For Adonai God has not caused it to rain. So this gives us everything in blue is what God did. So he did not cause it to rain on earth. There was no one to cultivate it, the ground. Rather, a mist went up from the earth, which watered the entire surface of the ground. Then Adonai God formed a person. Okay, so he hasn't caused it to rain because there wasn't anyone to cultivate it. So then he formed a person from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, so that he became a living being. Okay, then God planted a garden towards the east in Eden, and there he put the person whom he had formed. So God planted, and then he put the person there who he formed. Out of the ground, Adonai caused it to grow, every tree pleasing in appearance and good for food, including the tree of life in the middle of the garden, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So it's clear here that we see a creator, that he is the owner of everything because he created it. In verse 15, we read further where Adonai God took the person and put him into the Garden of Eden to cultivate and care for it. So his creation, so the creator has a creation, and now he takes something and put it there to work for him. So clearly in this scenario, you can see that there's a relationship between the creator and the creation and someone who works there. Now, if we go back one chapter in Genesis 1, verse 26 to 29, but how it walks hand in hand with Genesis 2. Then God said, let us make humankind in our image, in the likeness of ourselves, and let them rule over the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, the animals, and all of the earth, and over every crawling creature that crawls on the earth. So God created humankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them. God said to them, be fruitful, be multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, and every living creature that crawls on the earth. Then God said, yeah, throughout the whole earth, I'm giving you food, you as food, every seed-bearing plant and every tree with seed-bearing fruit. So this is a clear, if you read these two chapters together, we see that there's a creator and a creation. We see that he created someone to cultivate in it, and he gave that specific person in his image, he gave him rulership. So he did not give him ownership, he gave him rulership over that of everything that he created. And he gave us the instruction to be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. So he expects a growth on what he created. So it's also this relationship between God and his creation. Okay. Now further in Psalm 115, verse 14 to 16, this is also one of my favorite scriptures. May Adonai increase your numbers, both yours and those of your children. May you be blessed, the maker of heaven and earth. Gives God's character as the creator. Heaven belongs to Adonai. He's the owner. So he's the creator and the owner, but the earth he has given to humankind as to rule over it. So it belongs still to him, but he entrusts his creation with us. Psalm 24 verse 1 says, the earth is Adonai's with all that is in it, the world and those who live there. So even though there might be kingdoms, the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness, Satan can never own anything because he was also a creation, and everything belongs to God. Nothing belongs to him. So he might be a ruler, but he can never be an owner. And the same goes for us, is we were created to rule, to created as rulers and not the owner of earth. So if you look from an organogram perspective, we see that God is the creator and he's also the owner. Then there's this relationship between the creator and the creation. Now, we as his children are supposed to be rulers. Now, what this between the creator and the creation for me means is that there's a management contract between God and us. Now, in terms of this specific contract, what does he expect? For every contract, there needs to be two parties to that contract, and both parties should know in terms of performance what they should deliver at a specific time in the future. That's a contract. So from a management point of view, the question is, what are we supposed to do? And I think sometimes we look at everything that we are the owner of this, and we just want to build our own little kingdoms, and we just want to be the owner of everything, but we were never the owner of that. We were only there placed to rule over it. We are employed by God. We are not given ownership of it. We are given employment. And this brings me to the next part is when we look at this management contract, I like to call that the stewardship. So when we read Matthew 25, verse 14 to 18, we all know this. To another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, to each according to his ability. Okay. So here we see that there's a creator, creation, and the owner gave specific things to his servants. And that is ownership and rulership. Then he left. The one who had received 5 talents immediately went out, invested it, and earned another 5. Okay, so he had quite a nice growth on his investment. Similarly, the one who has given 2 earned another 2, also doubled it. But the one who had given 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned to settle accounts with them. So here we can see from a contract point of view, so the master has specific assets that he had. Now he gave those assets according to his servants as to their abilities. Now to one he gave 5, and to the other he gave 2, and he gave 1 to the last one. So he gave specific assets to specific people, and then he went away. And after a time he came back. Now this is where he asks his stewards, what did you do with what did I give you? So then, from verse 14 to 19, now the one who had received 5 talents came forward, bringing the other 5, and said, "Sir, you gave me 5 talents. Here I've made 5 more." His master said to him, "Wow, excellent. I wish I can one day hear that sentence from our Master Y'shua when he says, 'Excellent. You are a good and trustworthy servant. You've been faithful with a small amount, so I will put you in charge of a large amount. Come and join in your master's happiness.'" The same goes for the one who had 2. So I'll just skip forward a little bit. Now, to the one who had received 1 talent, came forward and said, "I knew you were a hard man." Sometimes I sound like this. You want to come already with excuses and reasons why you did not do something. I think my wife, when I have to wash dishes, she probably hear the sentence, "I knew you were a hard man. You harvest where you didn't plant and gather where you didn't sow seed." I was afraid, so I went and hid your talent in the ground. Yeah, take what belongs to you. Then the master said, "You wicked, lazy servant," said to his master. "So you knew, did you, that I harvest where I haven't planted, and that I gather where I didn't sow seed? Then you should have deposited my money with bankers, so that when I return, I would at least have gotten back interest with my capital. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10. I think the one who had 4 now, he probably feels, well, I just get 1. But in any case, what was taken from that one, that the only one has given to the one who has shown a track record that he's proven that he can grow whatever is given to him. Now, the next part is also important. For everyone who has something will be given more, so that he will have more than enough. But from anyone who has nothing, even what he does have will be taken away. As for this worthless servant, throw him out into the dark where people will wail and grind their teeth. Sure. May none of us, and whoever listens to this message, may none of us ever be in this position, but rather be in that position where we can show a good return. So if we break it down, in my head, I like to work in pictures, like I said right at the beginning, and I'd like to take these passages or chapters and then make it simple for myself. So I broke it down. So in life, we are all part of this. So in life, you get people that is thrown into bucket one. They received 1 talent. And exactly the same for the other 2 buckets. There are people who are in the second bucket, and then there are people who are in the third bucket. The question that I want to pose to you is, which bucket are you in? If you look at yourself and you want to determine in which bucket are you even sure in which bucket you're on? I think this is also probably a matter of perspective. If someone that's very poor, if he might look at myself, he would say, you are definitely in bucket 5. I might say, I think I'm still in bucket 1. If I look at my neighbor, he might be in bucket 5. So it's a matter of perspective, but it's for you to understand, where do you see yourself in? And I think we need to start defining, because we all have this contract. We all have this management contract. Cain and Abel exactly had this management contract. Abraham and Lot had exactly the same management contract with God. Noah and the rest of the people also had the same management contract. And why does God bless specific people? Why does he make specific covenants with specific people? It's because those of his servants that understand this management contract and who walks a life of set apartness. Those are that I am in. And it doesn't matter if you are in bucket 1 or bucket 2 or in bucket 3. It really doesn't matter. The responsibility is to show at the end of your management contract that you were able to grow what was ever given to you, or at least interest. That's what you are supposed to show. So the question I want to pose to you is, in which bucket are you in? And I've made a list, and I think this is where we get a little bit practical. So I've made this slide saying, let's get practical. I made this slide for us to determine in which bucket we are in. And the first question, and we have to make it from a practical point of view, because how can you determine in which bucket you are in? How much did I actually receive? And the only way to do that is, and I know that this sounds very worldly, but it's a way we need to start writing everything down to understand our point now, because we need to grow that. So the first point for me is to ask you, what is your net asset value? And if you don't know what a net asset value is, we'll get to that now. The second question is once you know what your net asset value, are you actually growing your net asset value, or are you losing it? Do you understand which assets can help you grow your balance sheet? Are you debt-free? Is your tithings up to date? Are you making use of tax-efficient strategies? Are you making an impact in the kingdom of light? Do you have a ministry? These are all questions that you have to ask yourself, because you are one day going to have that discussion, and probably those are in HR, they call it developmental or structural conversations, robust career discussions. But you are one day going to have that discussion with your master, and you need to formalize a strategy, a plan, because you are one day going to say, I was given this, did I move into this bucket here? Or did I move from this bucket into this one? That's ultimately your goal. So there has to be a shift from one bucket to the next, or at least interest. So here you will see it's exactly what I just explained is from bucket one to bucket two. You need to be in a position where after a specific period of time showed that you took what was given to you and you've multiplied that from at least 1 talent to plus interest, or 2 talents to 4 talents, or 5 talents to 10 talents. Now the question is, but how? I think this also talks to from a practical position, is do your own balance sheet. After you've done your balance sheet, do your own income and expenses sheet. Then you move into your strategy, because now you sit with a framework where you understand what exactly is given to you, because your balance sheet is a reflection of what was given to you, the assets that you hold, and you are now supposed to multiply that. Now you use that balance, you use your income and expenses statement, your money management sheet, to use that as a tool to grow your balance sheet. And this is where we get into specific strategies. Now, it doesn't matter. So sometimes I think a lot of the preachers and a lot of kingdom finance people focus so much on people in bucket one that they forget about people sitting in bucket three. People in bucket three are those who are very rich. It's those people who are referred to Matthew 19. They are very rich people because they felt that whatever they have belongs to them. So I think we need to make it clear that it doesn't matter whether you are a very poor person in bucket one or a very rich person in bucket three. You have to formalize a strategy, a plan, and implement that plan to move from one bucket to the next. And also, if you are in bucket three, are you actually helping those? You've managed to acquire specific skills to be able to grow your balance sheet. Are you using those skills to equip the rest of the body of our Messiah? Are you using those skills that you know? Are you using them to equip other people who are struggling, who are sitting in bucket one, that feel they cannot get out of it? Are you actively engaging with them to say, what are you doing with what was given to you? Because I can promise you, there wasn't a bucket where it was said that nothing was given to that one. You were at least given one specific thing, and the thing is that is your asset, and you must grow on that specific asset or have at least interest. So just from our perspective, do your balance sheet, an income and expenses sheet, put strategies in place, have a plan that talks to your strategies, implement this plan, take ownership of this plan, and then constant. If you put your goals in place for the next 3 months, where are you supposed to be in month 3, in month 6, in month 8? Because you have to regularly track your progress, because you don't want to sit at the end of your period and you never knew exactly where you were. So that's very important to review your progress. So let's look at a balance sheet. For those who did not study accounting, a balance sheet is your assets, equity, and this is called your net worth. So this is your rap sheet of what was given to you and how you were able to manage to grow that at the end of the day, because your liabilities eats up what was given to you. So it's really important. So from a physical and a worldly perspective, you must understand what do you have. So I've made this template for you, and you are more than welcome to use it to your expense. I've just used this as a reference point, because at the end of the day, this number where you sit at your net asset value, the question is, what are you doing with that? It isn't supposed to. So your treasure is Matthew 6 verse 21 says that where your heart is, there your treasures will be. So if you are only putting a balance sheet together to enrich yourself, then you are serving the kingdom of darkness. So all of these line items that sit in here is not supposed to only glorify and edify you. It's supposed to glorify and edify the King of Kings. You must use this, what was given to you, grow it, and have an impact in the kingdom of light. But this is a reference and a framework that you and your wife can use to understand where everything fits in. So from an assets point of view, what is an asset? An asset is anything that that can generate further growth. So it's something like your property that you own, a rental property, a primary residence that you've got. It's a business interest. So if you are self-employed, so myself, I am a professional person, so I don't necessarily own a business. So what assets do you have? This is your income generating asset. You have to put a value to it, because if your value of your business, if you've got a panel beating business where you fix cars, you have to understand how that business has a value today. What can you do to grow that business? And what impact is this business going to? And we call this your pension funds, your retirement annuities, everything that you save up to for a specific time in the future. You have to have a foresight in life. I hate it when people tell me, no, we're not going to care whether we are able to fund ourselves. At the end of the day, God will provide. Yes, God will definitely provide, but He's already providing for you now to save up for a specific point in time where you'll be able to use this asset. And I know everyone is going through different cycles in life. This is just a general view. It's not, if you don't necessarily have retirement funds because God took you on a different journey or a different road, that is sometimes His way of talking to you. So this is just in general. So you've got your compulsory investments, you've got your voluntary investments, and this is where you've got your Kruger rands, you've got gold, you've got local cash, you've got cash in overseas markets, you've got a unit trust, a share portfolio. Those are different assets that someone can have. And we don't have to get into the specifics. I think that will be a teaching on its own, where King Solomon gives us specific guidelines how we can actually use these assets to grow them. Why is diversification important? Specific investment strategies that relates to this. How does markets get what moves markets in the world? Is markets part of the kingdom of light, or is it a kingdom of darkness, or is it a hybrid platform where we see the kingdom of light and darkness? That is questions that we need to ask each other. But for our purposes for today is just to look at your balance sheet to understand in which bucket do you fall in. So if you add all of these different assets together, it gives you your gross assets. It gives you this total. Now we have to take off the liabilities that you've got. Now, liabilities in my head is divided into two sections. It's divided into secured debt and unsecured debt. Now, secured debt, that is your home loan. There's an asset behind the debt that you've got. So you've got a bond with Standard Bank or whichever bank you've got, but the property is linked to that specific debt. So there's a secured asset. Even a car, if you finance your vehicle, there's a secured asset behind it. The same goes to the opposite, however, for unsecured debt. There's nothing backing the underlying debt. And this is your credit cards, your revolving facilities, overdrafts, personal loans, all of those stuff. And I want to encourage you to have some plastic surgery. One of my favorite preachers, Wolf Craig, I like it when he refers to plastic surgery, saying you want to take your plastic card, your credit card, and have some plastic surgery and cut it up. This is a very bad thing on your balance sheet because it eats up what was given, stuck inside this bracket, and they constantly fall back into bucket one because they can't get out because their ability to generate growth. So it's easier for you to multiply if you've got more assets than to multiply if you have little assets, because that's the growth element behind it. So if you take a Ferrari and you take out the engine of it, that Ferrari is worth nothing. This is exactly what happens to debt in a balance sheet. You've got a Ferrari here, but the moment there's debt linked to it, it starts eating up the engine and the ability to grow. So this is how a balance sheet works, and this gives you ultimately this end net asset value. So I've taken just random numbers just to put it in here, and I want to emphasize this. When I got married, it was a very difficult start because now it's no longer just Jacus's balance sheet here, but it's Jacus and Lucia's balance sheet that's next to each other, and we are now combinedly responsible for everything. So I want to encourage all of the married couples, do your balance sheet together, because you are ultimately both responsible combined. And if you put everything together, it's easier for you to grow. Also, make efficient, you were given the ability, and I want to emphasize this also clearly. If you pay tax to the world, you are taking out a amount. It does not mean that you shouldn't pay. You should just be tax efficient in terms of how you structure everything. Do not make any illegal standard. Our word says that you should follow the rules and the structure and pay tax. You can never get cross that. You have to pay. But the question is, are you using your balance sheet as effective as you possibly can? You have to look at your income, because if you want to grow this, you need to have a generating ability to grow. And this relates to your income. You want to increase this number ultimately to grow your balance sheet.
Okay, let's just give it a moment to see if he is going to join again.
Hi. Sorry, I'll show.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, so let me just, I think Lisha told me that I was kicked off. Um, the, okay, so we are almost done. So just from a practical point of view, is from a management, you have to understand that where your income is flowing in and where it's going towards. So if you don't take book properly of these specific items in your income and expenses, you don't have control over it. And that's not having good stewardship. So as a general rule, it's very important to start with your tithings and your offerings. That's your first thing that you have to pay is your tithings and your offerings. First thing. So whatever comes in here, 10% must first go to the kingdom. After that, it's important to have a clear strategy from a savings, investment, and a risk management point of view. So you have to have a portion saved in cash. You have to have a portion that's invested with a longer term plan, and then also mitigate the specific risks that you have while you are still in that period when you are saving. Let me just get a laser here again. And then this is the next part, and a lot of people sit with this on their balance sheet on their income and expenses, is your unsecured debt. How much are you paying on a monthly basis for your credit card, your overdraft, the revolving facilities, your personal loans? I've seen so many people that has quite massive outflows towards unsecured debt. This is not healthy, and this is something that can strangle you properly. I think we should have a session where we only focus on debt. How did debt start? What's the reason for debt? And how this is actually causing you to be strangled. That rope that I've showed you right in the beginning is debt is something that can strangle you, and you are no longer able. So all of the money here or pay here, you could have used in the kingdom of light, but now everything is going to the kingdom of darkness. Then the next bracket here is housing. So I've grouped everything, and this is a template that I use. But again, I've seen so many different things. The important thing is you must develop something that works for you. You're welcome to use this. You're also welcome to phone me if you want me to help you to put this in place. But it's really important that you have to understand where everything is going. So I like to use numbers and data. So at the end of the month, I like to put all of these in pie charts to see 40% of my income went towards this, and 20% of my income went towards that, and 10% went here. And how can we change that? So if you are able on a monthly, on a regular basis to see this is what we've budgeted for, but at the end of the day, we actually paid this for it. So my wife is, I like to buy coffee at Seattle. You will see it here at the variable expenses here at the end. And if you add all of those little coffees up, at the end of the day, you will have a fright to see I actually paid so much just for little coffees. But again, if you are having those coffees and you are building the kingdom of light, then by all means have those Seattle coffees. But break your expenses down into different categories. Make sure that you're allocating it properly. And then, because there needs to be a flow, you have to track the flow of funds. Whatever comes in is going to flow out. That's why we call it the money management application. Is you are managing the cash, and ultimately this flows back into your balance sheet to understand, are you growing your net worth? Because it's your engine to grow that. So track your flow of funds. And then I want to ask you, so you must, at the end of the day, in your reviews, put together how much did you actually invest in the kingdom of light? Who did you invest into? Who is making a impact and changing? Because you are not, nothing belongs to you. You're only entrusted to this. Now, return is also defined by different metrics. return is, you've got a kingdom of darkness definition of what is return, and then you also sit with a return definition from a kingdom of light perspective. Now, sometimes a return measurement or a benchmark is, in worldly terms, is you want to outperform inflation, but that's a worldly term, and it might be a good benchmark, and I think that is one of those neutral benchmarks. That's not necessarily a kingdom of darkness benchmark and not necessarily a kingdom of light benchmark. Is a neutral one, but it's a foundation that you work off. So you have to define, what does it mean to make a positive impact? What's return in the impact or in the kingdom of light? That determines your return at the end of the day. So how you measure that is to see how much tax did you pay, how much did you pay for tithes, how much did go towards debt, and how much of your money went towards investments. Those are the things that you have to compare with each other to understand what was the ultimate flow of funds and how are you changing that. What was did you budget for this specific item in your monthly budget, and how much did you actually spend? And that difference needs to be rebalanced over a specific time, and you have to be honest with yourself and with your spouse. And you have to sit together and say, shucks, wife, I've spent too much this month on coffees at Seattle. She must said she spent too much on her brows or cosmetics and whatever. And we have to keep each other accountable, because that's what we're going to have to present at the end of the day. And I've also just included this slide here because a lot of people is stuck in debt. A lot of people. And this is a template that I've developed to show you, firstly, the item of the debt that you've got. And it's good to break it down to say, well, how much did F&B at the beginning give me on this credit card? What's the outstanding one? So if you want to manage your debt, this is the way to actually do it on a monthly basis. And it will kill you to get out of it, because the interest rates on these items are sometimes so high that it will eat you up. So you have to understand, what was the principal debt, how much is outstanding, what is the applicable interest rate on it, how much are you paying monthly towards it, and what is the remaining term, and how can you, from your cash management skills, try to close this gap as quick as possible. Now, one of the strategies, we call it the snowball approach. So you identify any one of them and you say, whatever I did not use, or I'm rather not going to buy any Seattle coffees this month, I'm going to take that 500 Rand a month and put it towards my credit card, for argument's sake. It's got the smallest remaining period. It's got the highest monthly payment, and the interest rate is very high. So I'm going to tackle that one first. Once you clear that extra 500 Rand, if you put that into your credit card, you will see that this term is quickly getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Once this thing is done and dusted, you take your plastic surgery again, you cut up that card, and you go to the next item on your debt list. The same goes, whatever you pay for the credit card, plus the 500 Rand that you used to pay at Seattle for coffees, and you pay the minimum amount here, plus whatever, and you start breaking down each one of these debts over a longer term period. And you will see it gives you the amount of satisfaction is incredible. So this is just a tool to use. So I want to close off by a statement, and I think this relates to all three buckets from a practical point of view. It's a statement that was written by Francois van Niekerk in his book, Doing Business with a Purpose. And he said he wants to create a river, not necessarily a dam. If you are stuck in saying, I want to grow this amount for yourself, or you just want to increase your debt because if you die, who's going to care about your debt? You are just going to live life. You are not building a river for someone else, because a river feeds multiples, where a dam is only for those next to that dam. So you want to have a river rather than a dam that's only for you. And if you apply these principles that I've spoken here about today, you are able to live a life where you, at the end of the day, be in a position where your master said, excellent, I've entrusted you with this and you've given me that. I'm proud of you. So if you felt that you got benefit from this, you are always welcome to reach out to me. If you've got questions, if you want to sit and someone to help you, it will be definitely free of charge. I've got a passion for finances. If you want to contact me, please feel free. More than willing, and I want to help. If you are struggling to put a budget in place, if you are struggling to understand a balance sheet, if you're struggling to understand kingdom principles, please reach out to me. I will gladly offer some assistance in this regard. Let me just go back. Stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Jacus. That was really very insightful. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Jacus, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and everybody who listened, and I'm sure there are a few people who are going to watch the recording. And yes, may you have a blessed Shabbat and Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Thanks, Shabbat Shalom to everyone else as well.
Thank you. I just want to stop the recording. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers, everyone. Keep well.
Bye.